by Hist Teknir Zorzi at the Galactic University of Zakan. Subject of the lecture, Minor Systems Contribution to Historic Changes, presented first on Zol Day 4130 AD, Terran Reckoning. 1. Swordsman, 3rd Class. Because he had never been in Prime before, Karr, Arc Swordsman, 3rd Class, would have liked nothing better than to brace his lanky length against the wall of the airport and stare up at those towers thrusting into the steely blue of the morning sky. But to do that was to betray himself as a greenie, so he had to be satisfied with glances skyward, taking in as much of the awesome sight as he could without becoming conspicuous. More than ever, he resented the fate which had delivered him at combatant headquarters a whole month later than his recruit class, so that he would probably be the only newcomer among those awaiting assignment in the hiring hall. Actually, to be at Prime itself was exciting. This was the goal toward which 10 years of intensive training had pointed him. He put down his war bag and rubbed his damp hands surreptitiously against his tight breeches. Though it was a crisp early spring day, he was sweating. The stiff collar of his new green-gray tunic sawed at his throat, and the cheek wings of his dress helmet chafed his jaws. All his accoutrements weighed more than they ever had before. He was acutely conscious of the bare state of the belts crossing his shoulders, of the fact that his helmet was still crestless. The men who had shared the shuttle with him scintillated with the gemmed loot of scores of successful missions, veterans, every one of them. Well, to achieve that status was only a matter of time, he repeated silently once more. Every one of these emblazoned figures now passing had stood there once, just as bare of insignia, probably just as uncertain inside as he now was. Kana's attention was caught by another color, blazingly alive among the familiar waves of green-gray and silver. As his lips made a narrow line, his blue eyes, so startlingly vivid in his dark face, chilled. A surface mobile had drawn up before the entrance of the very building to which he had been directed, and climbing out of it was a squat man swathed in a brilliant scarlet cloak, behind him 2 others in black and white. As if their arrival had been signaled, the Terran combatants on the steps melted to right and left, making a wide path to the door. But that was not in honor, Karr reminded himself fiercely. Terrans on their home planet paid no deference to galactic agents, except in a style so exaggerated as to underline their dislike. There would surely come a time when... His fists balled as he watched the red cloak and his guardian galactic patrolman vanish inside the hiring hall. Kana had never had direct contact with an agent. The XTs, the non-human extraterrestrials, who had been his instructors after he had proved capable of absorbing XT and alien liaison training, were a different class altogether. Perhaps because they were non-human, he had never really ranked them among those rulers of central control who had generations earlier so blithely termed the inhabitants of Sol's system barbarians, not eligible for galactic citizenship except within the narrow limits they defined. He was conscious that not all his fellows were as resentful of that as he was. Most of his classmates, for example, had been content enough to accept the future so arbitrarily decided for them. Outright rebellion meant the labor camps and no chance to ever go into space. Only a combatant on military duty had the privilege of visiting the stars. And when Kana had learned that early in his career, he had set himself to acquire the shell of a model arc, discovering in XT training enough solace to aid his control of the seething hatred for the fact that he was not allowed to range the stars as he willed. The sharp note of a military whistle proclaiming the hour brought him back to Earth and to the problem at hand. He shouldered his war bag and climbed the steps up which the agent had gone a few moments before. He left his bag in the lockers by the door and took his place in the line of men winding into the inner hall. The mechs in their blue-gray coveralls and bubble helmets outnumbered the arcs in his particular section of that creeping line, and the few arcs